Hey guys, what's up? So yeah, I told you guys that I was going to be bringing up some of my more lighthearted aspects of myself, bringing my hobbies, bringing my interests, and video games was one of them, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, specifically one aspect of video games. Now, you probably already guessed what I'm going to be talking about because of the freaking title, but I'm going to get into it anyway. I play a lot of video games. A lot. I used to play a hell of a lot more than I do now. These days, I'm so super freaking busy that I can't really get into the games that I really want to get into, but I try to fit it in when I have free time and I'm not working on the other things I like to do, and there's nothing else to do, and I say, yeah, let me play a game again. I haven't been able to play the stuff that I really like Dark Souls, for instance, which is right now my favorite freaking PlayStation 3 game of all time. Probably almost one of my. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Period. I haven't been able to play that because that would mean sitting down in front of a TV and doing that. I just haven't had a chance. But I haven't played other things like Torchlight and whatever. But I do like playing a lot of video games, and I also like every now and then revisiting old classic games. And I'm finding that these days, if you have been playing video games as long as I have, I'm 36 years old, so I've been around games for a long freaking time, since the Atari days and the Nintendo days and all that. And every now and then I like playing the old games. But I don't have the money to do what the video game collectors do, where they still buy old consoles and have those old cartridges, and they go out to eBay and get all these freaking lots of games, and they hook their old TVs up to hook their old consoles up to the old TVs and stuff. That costs money. I ain't got that much. But I still like playing the old stuff. And you kind of need, if you're like me anyway, and you want to play the old stuff, you need something that can still play the old stuff without having to go and constantly hunt down cartridges and hunt down old CDs and hunt down old consoles that still freaking work. And I find that there is one device that can do that for you on fairly cheap. And that device is the PC, which I'm not going to be talking about today. Other than the PC, there is another device that you can get, and it's one of these, a PSP. Now, it's funny, if someone was to come to me and ask me, as far as getting yourself a handheld system for playing video games, what's the best option? I would think it would be obvious, or at least I used to think it was obvious until I started doing my research on these things. If you were going to ask me that question in terms of all you're going to do is just buy it and play the games that are made for it on it, you just want a device that has a good library of games, and you're not planning on going any further than that, then yeah, I think the answer is a no-brainer. I mean, it's get yourself a DS or a 3DS, the Game Boy one, from Nintendo. Ever since they put out the Game Boy, Nintendo has pretty much been kicking ass in the handheld market. And about the only thing right now that I think is giving it a run for its money are cell phones. With the, casual mobile gaming market that's going on with that. A lot of casual players are now jumping onto that. It's easy to do, swipe, whatever. But as far as it's if you want to get a system that's straight up video game playing, then yeah, get yourself a DS or a 3DS. But let's say you're a tinkerer like me, and you want to do a little bit more, and you especially want something that you can hold in your hand that opens. You're going to do a lot more than just simply playing the games that come with it. You might want to be able to crack it open to play a lot more, or even do a lot more. And you want to pick up one of these. And the reason why I'm recommending this to somebody who may be into playing video games, who hasn't heard of what you can do with this yet, is that these things are hackable. Incredibly hackable. And they've been getting more and more hackable as the years went on. And you're now able to do a lot more with this than just play the UMDs that came with it. Now, I'm not really going to be going into a whole history lesson of the PSP for those who still haven't gotten one yet, or who might be interested in it. Just look. You're on the freaking internet. Look online and start researching shit. You can find a whole lot about the PSP and its struggles to try to stay relevant in the handheld market with moderate success. As far as the games it has going, as far as the physical medium goes, I will admit its library doesn't really compare to the DS, these things, the UMDs, though there are a few really good games for it, like the Tekken games, and for instance, right now, I got Final Fantasy Tactics on here, which is one of my favorite. This is my favorite Final Fantasy game of all time. And it's one of my favorite PSP games right now, as far as UMDs go. One cool thing about them, though, is that UMDs are ridiculously cheap now. They've discontinued them. Sony's pretty much discontinued UMDs now. So you can find them, new ones, unopened ones, for like $10. Sometimes a little bit cheaper if you know where to look. And these are really good games. Some of them, you know, I'll admit, not everything in the UMD library is all that great. And they aren't that, you know, compared to let's say, a 3DS or DS library, then it's not that huge a variety. But there's still some damn good games on there. Really good games, you know, like PlayStation 2 quality, almost PlayStation 2 quality graphics games, maybe at that point. And like I said, there's some really, like, you know, the fighting games like Tekken and such, or like Final Fantasies, or even first-person shooters tend to do okay in here, racing games. But that's not the main reason why I picked up a DS. Well, okay, Final Fantasy Tactics is the main thing that made me say, okay, I need to go get myself a DS. Get myself a DS. Myself. But you want to know the main thing that made me decide to go get a DS? Like I said, it's hackable. And why would you want to hack one of these? So you can play other games. Imagine having something in your hand that you can pull out your pocket or bag at any time and playing NES games, Super NES games, Genesis games, TurboGrafx 16 games, arcade games, Neo Geo games, PlayStation 1 games, N64 games. This is the device you can do that with. It's called emulation, for those of you who don't know about that yet. And this thing can emulate a hell of a lot of stuff. Now, granted, it can't emulate everything. And there are some glitches, like for instance with the Super NES, there are emulators out for this that pretty much are almost perfect, but a couple of games, like say Star Fox, don't run all that great on it. The fact that it can run on this, though, is a miracle, but, you know, it's kind of slow and a bit glitchy. But for the most part, it'll run Super NES games. It runs like regular Nintendo games, the old Nintendo Entertainment System games, like a dream. This is pretty much like holding a handheld NES if you got the emulators working right. Same thing with Genesis games, TurboGrafx 16 games, Game Boy games. And that's what I think is the most ironic thing. I'm playing Game Boy games on this. Old Game Boy games, Game Boy Color games, Game Boy Advanced games. Not DS games. I have not found a decent emulator for this yet. For DS, but I'm pretty sure sooner or later somebody's going to make it. And again, yeah, this can handle it. And handle it quite well. So, if you are, you know, an avid video game player, and yeah, I'm saying video game player, I'm not going to use the word gamer. I'm sorry. I find it a really silly fucking term. I'm not going to blame you for using it. It's a common use term now, but really, it's fucking silly. It's just a hobby. You know, yeah, I'm an avid hardcore reader. I read books. No, you're somebody who happens to like reading books, or you're somebody who happens to like watching movies, or maybe somebody who likes to, you know, ride your bicycle or something. We don't necessarily have to come up with a special word for those people. And I know we got words, but it's not something that's like, that's your stamp. That's what you are. A gamer? Please. I find it a little pretentious and stupid, and I think the title is doing us a little bit more harm than good. So, I find PSPs to be great for the versatile video game player. Somebody who wants something that can play a whole lot of their old games, like games that they remember from their youth, you know, from the past, that they still want to play. You know, this can do a lot of it. The PC is probably the best in terms of, you know, emulating a lot of old stuff, which, by the way, as an aside, yeah, Microsoft, nobody cares about backwards compatibility, really? Then why are emulators still so fucking popular? Why does DOSBox still exist? How could you be so freaking stupid as you know what? That's another one. Microsoft is pissing me off right now, but it's a whole other topic. But, yeah, for the versatile video game player, I seriously suggest you get one of these, hack it with some custom firmware, and start finding out the wonderful world of underground PSP playing. Like, you know, really tinkering with this, because it's amazing what this thing can do in the right hands. And I'm about to show you some of the things that you can do with it, just to show you guys. And these things are cheap. I was able to pick this up with all its cables, including a car charger, this protective pouch, an already supplied 8GB card, which I later replaced with a 32 gigabyte. Another pouch to hold all the wires, and 6 UMD games, the whole package, for $57 plus shipping and handling. That ain't bad. Granted, I got that on eBay. If you buy it new, you could probably pick up yourself up a unit for about $99, maybe a little bit more, but that's still a steal compared to, you know, considering what you can actually do with this, which I'm going to be showing you in a moment. So, okay guys, here we go. I am trying to, this is the best angle I can come up with. I'm using my phone to record these past couple of videos. I've been using my phone, and it's not, I really need to find a better camera, but this is the best I can work with for now, especially with this widescreen format. So you're just going to have to deal with it. I am really sorry. Hopefully I'll find something better. But I'm turning this sucker on, and yeah, that's my background, one of my many backgrounds. I constantly keep changing my stuff. For those who haven't seen a PSP in use before, it's, you know, that's its menu before you get into its games. It's a lot like the menu for PS3, PlayStation 3. It's very, very similar, which I personally happen to, it's more or less useful. Like I said, I got a UMD loaded on, and as you can see, it's swiftly switching to Final Fantasy Tactics, which I have loaded in here, which I love playing that game. But that's not what I'm going to show you, because it's a PSP. You should expect it to play UMDs. Before you can do any of the stuff that I have loaded on here, actually, no, let me just show you what I got loaded on here so far. That's the UMD, like I said. We're going to go into games, which I have loaded up on my memory stick. We click that, and look, what do you know? That's an emulator to play Super NES games. What do you know? That's the Master Boy. That's what I use to play Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. And the reason why it's called a Master Boy is because it also plays Sega Master System games. Anybody remember the Sega Master System? I sure do. It was my first video game console. Yeah, there's no special screen for that, but that's Nestor J, which plays my Nintendo games. That is something for later. There, Ergies, PlayStation 1 game. I have that loaded on here. Bloody Roar 2. I have that loaded on here. That one is Ridge Racer. I really need to redo that one. These particular pieces here, I actually made myself. I converted the PlayStation 1 games to work on there. Silent Bomber, another one of my favorite PlayStation 1 games, old one, got loaded up on there. Pico Drive for Play Genesis games. That one's my Neo Geo emulator, but right now it's a little bit off the fritz because I've been messing with it. My Game Boy Advance emulator, and another Super NES emulator as I use as backup. So, let me just, you know what, let me go into the Master Boy. I'm going to show this off first. Wait for it to load. Man, I was so giddy when I found out I could load these things up on here. This is the main reason why I own one of these now. Just the fact that I can, you know... And by the way, I have to admit, the PSP is a well-made handheld. Very well made. I mean, I like the widescreen. I like the, you know, the graphics is pretty good. The screen itself is pretty decent quality. This one happens to be a PSP 2000 for those in the know who know a bit about this. I prefer to go with a 2000 instead of a 1000 simply because I know the 1000 is more hackable than a 2000, but the 2000 has more internal memory. You know, it's more RAM, like, you know, 64 megabytes compared to 32. And ultimately, I find that to be better for the emulation that I'm doing. You kind of need the extra RAM in this thing. And besides, the 2000 is almost as hackable as the 1000 anyway, and it's getting more hackable all the time. So, I'm going to load ROMs, and I am going to actually load up. Hold on for a second. We're going to go back, because I want to show off my... For those who remember, people don't show off the Sega Master System much, so I'm going to show off this thing. This was actually the second video game I've ever owned. The first one was Astro Warrior, which came with the Sega Master System. This was the very second one, and this is actually the very first video game I have ever beaten. And as you can see, for anyone who's owned this game or has ever played it, I'm doing horribly here, but that's because I'm just playing just for the sake of showing this off. I normally do not play this bad. But you can just, the colors are, I can tell you from somebody who used to own this game, the colors are reproduced faithfully. The music is spot on. The guy who developed this emulator really knew what they were doing. And it just works great. Just playing this and listening to the music is bringing back memories. So, yep, that's Kung Fu Kid. Very first game I ever beat. Enough of that, though. I said enough of that. Yes, I'm gonna quit. But, yeah, and it also plays Game Boy games, which I find freaking hilarious. Because it's kind of ironic that, you know, I'm using a system that was in direct competition with Nintendo's handhelds, and yet I'm playing Nintendo's handhelds on it. Which I'm pretty sure, you know, I wonder if Sony execs would use that as a selling point these days. Probably not. But it would be. It's a nice underground selling point, isn't it? I'm going to go into the advance just to show you that it can work pretty well with this as well. By the way, getting these things on here to work is not hard. It's not hard at all. All it takes is installing the right files. That's it. You just install the right files in here and rearrange a couple of, you know, files, and that's it. That's all you got to do. Hold on for a second. What are you doing? Load new game. There we go. Go into that. ROMs. Go into all these. These are my advanced games right now. And you can see my tastes in games probably. Let's try Metroid Fusion, one of my favorites. I was about to load up River City Ransom EX, which is another one of my favorites. But again, the music, pretty spot on. I should know I own this game on my Game Boy Advance. I've played it, beaten it. Let me move it over so you don't see the reflection. There you go. That's better. And so I just slid this like that. There we go. Reproduces everything pretty well. And it looks pretty good on the screen. Graphics there. I'm just going to hurry up, load. Let's start. As you can see, I have not started this game yet, so... And I'm going to just kind of speed through things. Okay, finally, we are... And as you can see, this thing works perfectly. I'm actually looking at my phone's screen to play this, so it feels kind of awkward, but I have to do that in order to try to, you know, make sure that everything's into focus, and it makes it kind of hard to play. But as you can see, this works. And for those of you who know this game, I'm pretty sure you're not kind of laughing at the fact that I got Metroid Fusion working on my PSP. And it works fine. And I'm playing like an idiot. I swear I do not play this bad. Really, I don't. But it's just, you know, F it. I'm looking at the proper screen. I don't know why I feel so disconnected playing it if I'm looking at my phone screen. See, now I'm actually playing decently. But you've probably seen too many reflections and such. But, you know, it runs just fine. Controls work okay. Get up there. Another thing I like, by the way, if you take a look, I'm going to move this over. You see that on the top? That just basically lets you know the frames per second, you know, and other relevant information, just in case you need to adjust your emulator to make the graphics work correctly. And, you know, that's this, you know, that's more advanced stuff. I'm just fiddling around right now. I'm not playing seriously. I'll probably play it seriously later. But again, you know, in the navigation room, I'm not even, yeah, I guess I gotta do that. But yeah, you see, it works just fine. Graphics work just fine. It's a pretty cool game. Pretty cool emulator. Decent game to play on the emulator. Okay, I don't want this video to be too long. All you're doing is just seeing me mess around with the system. I'm just simply trying to show you what you can do with this thing. So, why don't we go into something that, just to really show off what this thing can do. By the way, for those of you, like, I think the biggest achievement that I did with this was play PlayStation 1 games. I think that was the best, being able to get PlayStation 1 games to work on here. And that took not that much work. Again, it was just installing the right things. But making your own play... Because I actually have my own library of PlayStation 1 games. And I, you know, convert those in order to play on here. and converting those and getting the background images and all that type of stuff to pop up to look the way that, like that intro menu with the screen background and all that type of stuff. You got to do a little bit more work to do that, and it's rewardable. It's rewarding to actually set up your PlayStation 1 games that way. Of course, I'm going to pick my guy. You guys, some of you might remember back that one particular ranting video I put up where I have this playing in the background. I like this particular game. It's not the best fighting game in the world, but I find if I just simply feel like pounding the crap out of anybody without really thinking too much about it, this is the game that I mess with. And I, again, am playing like a moron, but I'm not... yeah, just showing you that it works just fine. The music's working just fine. There's no graphical mess-ups here. It's working the way it should. It just works just fine. I mean, it's just fantastic to me that I'm playing a freaking PlayStation 1 game on here. So, now granted, playing PlayStation 1 games does have some drawbacks. If you are trying to play a PlayStation 1 game in here that use the L2 and R2 buttons, you're at a bit of a quandary because there are no equivalents of that button. At least you don't have L1 and you don't have L2 and R2 buttons on a PSP. You have L1 and R1 buttons, but you don't have L2 and R2 buttons. So, man, I'm playing like a moron. But so I'm just concentrating on this. But there is a solution to it. It's a bit of an awkward solution. The analog stick. You can actually map that to be the replacement for your L2 and R2s. Like that would be L2 and that would be R2. It works. It's like this is the menu you'd go into. You would hit home, go into that, and you see where it says assign buttons and assign controller ports. That's how you would do it. Some games that would be awkward. Other games, it actually works just fine. But you can indeed do that. So yeah, just showing off, like, what you can do with this thing, and it's not all that hard to do it. All you would need to do, to be honest, is install custom firmware, and that's the right custom firmware. Once you have that going, you can pretty much install whatever you want on this thing, provided that it was made to work on a PSP, and there you go. And it's not just games. I've seen people, some people have come up with camera programs for this. I think, but I am not entirely sure. I think somebody came up with some video software editing programs for this. I'm not certain. I'd have to look into it again. But, you can do a lot of stuff with this little unit. And again, I only paid $57 for this and a whole bunch, like 6 other games, and, all its peripherals and such. Because again, these old PSP units, they're not being sold anymore. And the UMDs themselves, if you want to get yourself a library of, some decent games that this thing can natively play, they're dirt cheap. I picked up this Final Fantasy Tactics game pretty much new for not even $10. I picked it up for $6. And it's amazing to me that, that right now it's pretty much a bargain. But granted, consider that if you're going to be picking this up, I don't recommend picking this up if you're somebody who just simply wants to get yourself a decent handheld unit and play the latest games, because unless you're going to be downloading from the PlayStation Network, which this thing can do, you're not really going to be getting all that much. And in fact, they're moving away from this and they're going with the PlayStation Vita now. This is being pushed by the wayside. Hell, like I said, UMDs are now discontinued, so you're pretty much just going to be buying the last. If you're buying new UMDs, you're buying the last that's in stock in retail areas or retail websites, and then that's it. You're regulated to the used market. So I would only recommend picking this up if you are going to be doing, the type of things that I'm doing with it, emulating games, hacking it to do more than just playing UMDs, just using it as an all-purpose gaming device and possibly media device. Like I'm planning on getting a camera with this to see if I can actually record some decent footage with this as well. I might actually use this as my camera if I actually get decent footage with it. We'll see. But that's the main reason why I would recommend you doing this. If you are a versatile video game type person and you plan on using this to more than just playing UMDs. If you're not, however, you're just simply looking for a basic handheld, then yeah, I say stick with a 3DS or a DS. Maybe the Vita. I'm hearing some good things about the Vita. Not enough for me to instantly go out and buy one, but it looks to be a pretty decent device, so maybe that, but I was just looking into it. But yeah, for an old school video game player like me who wants to play all this, like, you want to play Chrono Trigger on the go, the original Chrono Trigger on the go, grab this. You can do it. You want to play your old NES games, want to beat the crap out of people with the old school River City Ransom, grab this. You want to be able to take your PS1 games with you on the fly and just pull out your pocket anytime, pick this up. And so on and so forth. Like I said, this thing is awesome for an old school video game player like me. And if you are somebody new into playing games and you want to kind of get into it and you want to jump into the wonderful world of playing video games, but you want to do it on the cheap and you are willing to do the bit of editing that you're going to need to do to get it working on this, make the plunge. You can find this really cheap on eBay or Amazon, on the used market. And even in the newer markets, the price is going down on these things. So I'd consider it. I really would. I've rambled on this long enough. I hope this was somewhat enjoyable for you guys and showing a side of me of, other than philosophical and political ranting. And I was somewhat tempted to actually put up videos and show you how to actually get started on editing this to do that. But there's already excellent videos on YouTube showing you how to do that and excellent websites showing you step by step. So if you guys want me to show you how to basically set this up, I'll do that. Just hit me in the comment section or PM me, and if I get enough of them, I will do a very quick video showing you how to set this sucker up to do what I just showed you I could do with it. Anyway, that's it. Catch you guys later.